Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I hope I can do my part to bring some level of analytical clarity to the debate. There are two very popular notions now on the situation in Iran. One is, we already have a revolution, or we're on the verge of a revolution within a day, a week, or months. Now, of course, that has very real implications in terms of how to approach Iran, because once you accept the notion that the regime is minutes or days or weeks away, then the natural conclusion is, well, why talk to them? Because you can talk to the next one. The other popular opinion is that it is morally questionable to speak to a state that is engaged in such a brutal human rights record. Has such a poor human rights record and is brutally suppressing the democratic and freedom-loving aspirations of its people. To address these points, a useful exercise is to ask what would happen if there's no engagement with the Iranian government. First, we have the issue of the nuclear program. As you probably know, within the past few days, the head of the IAEA, the nuclear watchdog, has announced that Iran now has enough fissile material for several nuclear bombs. Now, that doesn't mean they've made the decision to get bombs. But the question is, are you comfortable with the notion, with the idea of Iran having enough fissile material for several nuclear weapons? But negotiating with the Iranian state, whether you like them or not, has other implications. Not negotiating with them. Because, for instance, agreements such as the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, is not just about keeping Iran's nuclear program under check. It's also about, it's a mechanism for minimizing the risk of escalation, of military escalation with Iran. You'll recall that shortly after the deal was put into effect, the Revolutionary Guard arrested a number of American sailors in 2016 in the Persian Gulf. Now that issue, the tensions between Iran and the United States and the West as a whole were so diffused that that issue was resolved over a phone call between the Iranian and American chief diplomats at the time, and they were released. You've probably heard of the strikes, for instance, in recent days within Iranian territory, which presumably they've been attributed to the Israelis, for instance. Or you will recall what happened not long after Trump withdrew from the nuclear deal in 2018. Within 2 years, with less than 2 years, we were on the verge of a war in January 2020 in the absence of a deal. So the deal isn't just about putting Iran's nuclear facilities in check. Bear in mind, since June, when the Iranians shut down the cameras, we don't know what's happening in many of the facilities. We used to be able to know, now we don't. So when you call for no diplomacy with Iran, you need to ask yourself, are you comfortable with that? But of course, there's the third consequence of isolation and sanction and no talking to Iran. Sanctions have two impacts on Iranian civil society and the state. A, they empower the very bodies that are charged with repressing the Iranian people. The other thing they do is that they diminish the power of the Iranian middle class, the backbone of the Iranian pro-democracy movement. Now, since sanctions have been enforced, so during the Trump years especially, the size of Iran's middle class has halved. The number of Iranians who are now below the poverty line has tripled. Without a very strong civil society, without a very strong middle class, it's very unlikely that the democratic aspirations of the Iranian people will benefit from this situation. Calling for sanctions, calling for more isolation may feel morally the right thing, and it's understandable. But I do not think, and the evidence doesn't suggest, that it produces the desired outcome, which is helping the pro-democracy struggle and also reducing tensions and also boosting non-proliferation efforts, if you think that non-proliferation efforts are a worthy pursuit.
All right.